Hello there and welcome to this week's edition of Times Exclusive right here on Times TV with me, Wezi Kasambala. This week I'm joined in the studios by film extraordinaire, arguably some might say one of the best filmmakers to ever come out of Malawi, and it is of course none other than Shemu Joya.
Weather Shield, another brand from Rainbow Paints. This is Ultimate. An extreme high-performance acrylic smooth textured finishing with ultraviolet absorption and maximum flexibility properties for wall finishes. A built-in fungicide to resist molds. Simple to use, quick drying, water-resistant binding power, low dirt retention, and hides hairline cracks. Suitable for use on all exterior walls, be it plaster, concrete, or brickwork. Available in a wide range of colors in 5 and 20-liter containers. Contact us today in Blantyre 01841-813, 01841-871, Lilongwe 01755-901. Email info@rainbowpaints.biz. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind, part of the deal.
Thank you so much for joining us. A pleasure to have you in our studios.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We've decided to sort of divert from our usual politics, so we want to go into arts.
Yes.
So today we want to interview somebody in the world of arts.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people know you as a film producer, director, even script writer. So you do a little bit of everything when it comes to film. But I don't think that's necessarily your background. So I want us to start there, first of all, before we go into Shemu Joya, the actual film, not star per se, because that would mean you're an actor, but you also do the acting, don't you?
A little bit, just a little bit.
Just a little
to
bit.
Enjoy myself.
Okay,
Not
all right.
serious.
Okay.
I'm a terrible actor.
All right. So how did you go into movie making? I think let's start there.
Yeah, I went into movie making when I was a kid. Literally, I started thinking about it when I was a kid. Because when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, we were living near a cinema, which was only 200 meters away from our house.
Right.
And every Saturday and Sunday, my sister would take me to watch movies. And every time I come back home, I would try to enact what was happening, try to stage something, and people at home would laugh. My mother, my sister would laugh, and that was just in me at that point. So when later on I went to secondary school, we came back to Malawi. I went to secondary school. I realized that filmmaking is such a difficult thing because it's so expensive. You need a lot of equipment and so on. And the ideas simply went off.
Right.
Then I went to school and so on.
So at that point, was it more, did you already see yourself as being the filmmaker, or were you envisaging yourself as the actor at that point?
At that time I was thinking myself more as an actor.
Yeah.
I was thinking more as an actor because those are the people we see. We were in the cinema.
That's right.
But later when I then went to secondary school and later on to university, I started reading more books on filmmaking, and later I realized that probably I'm probably better off behind the camera than in front of the camera.
Right.
So I started studying more and more about film production, cinematography, set designing, and things like that. And yeah, that's it. Basically, I trained myself to be a filmmaker because when I went to secondary school and then later went to university, I studied mathematics and physics at Chancellor College.
Yes.
I graduated in 1982 with a degree in physics and mathematics, and then in 1985, I went to UK to study land surveying and mapping sciences. So filmmaking is like a hobby.
So that would make you what? A quantity surveyor?
A land surveyor.
A land surveyor,
surveyor.
right.
Yes, I run a consultancy company as a land surveyor.
So some might actually be interested to know, how is it that somebody who actually studied physics and mathematics, a fully fledged land surveyor, how did you completely digress and go and get so taken by movie making? Because you said you were teaching yourself, but at the same time you were also studying, right?
Yes.
To be a land surveyor.
Yes, yeah. The thing is this, that there's been a certain passion in me about filmmaking. It's always been there, as I say, right from the time I was a kid. So when I was in UK, for example, I would really follow very closely programs on, say, Channel 4. They had a program on Channel 4 that time on how films are made and things like that.
Right.
So I would follow those programs very closely. And anytime I went into the library and find a book on filmmaking, I would take it and read it. Though I was doing land surveying as my profession, of course. This was like a hobby, really a very burning hobby. Then when I came back, I felt that, look, I just have to go on and concentrating on it. But the problem was still the same. Finances in making a movie were a problem. So slowly with my profession, because in 1992, 93, I started my own private company, consultancy company as a land surveyor, and I was able to accumulate a little bit of money, and it's using that money that I was able to buy my first camera and put up my first movie. But actually without land surveying, I don't think I would have been a filmmaker. So I basically say I took filmmaking as a hobby, but it's a hobby that now is almost taking over my life.
I see.
Yeah.
So what would you say to critics who would perhaps say that, well, he never actually went to school for this, who perhaps question your credibility as a filmmaker? What would your response be to them?
My response is that in art, you don't need to go to anybody's university to become an artist. I think an artist is born. What school does is simply sharpen up those skills. And I think you can sharpen them up, not necessarily in the corridors of a university, but even in your own living room, in a bus, in a minibus. You can take a book and read it and even understand it even better than maybe somebody who's actually gone into school. Have you noted that actually most of the professors in literature don't write books? People study Chinua Achebe, people study Ole Soyinka, but you see, they don't have the PhDs in literature and so on. They got the school trains you for the academic work, but for an artist, you're really born as one. And I think it's a matter of identifying that you have that thing in you, and then finding ways of how you can use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are of the view that even if you had gone to school, even now, for instance, to go and academically hone your skills, you don't think it's going to make any difference to what you already know now?
From a creative point of view.
Do you think there'll be any value to be gained from that?
The only value that it will have will be from the technical aspects of filmmaking, because there are quite a number of
that's
areas,
right.
technical aspects of filmmaking. For example, one has to understand things like lighting, how the light reacts.
And that just doesn't come naturally,
No, that doesn't come naturally.
Right.
But in terms of creating a story, in terms of telling people a story and figuring out how you're going to tell it in such a way that it has an impact on people, that you're basically born with. As I say, I have always been a writer. When I was in primary school, actually, I started writing poems. In secondary school, I was writing short stories, which were being published in the school magazine. When I was in college, after I finished, I think I won the literature competition in 1990 in Malawi. The British Council had a competition on writing, and my short story won an award. And I actually went to UK for 2 weeks as the prize for that thing. So, in other words, the ability to tell stories has always been there. What I always feel that sharpens your skills better might not necessarily even be, say, reading a book or a critical book on how to analyze a film, but actually reading more books or watching more films, good films, and not just watching to enjoy them, but watching to understand how the director made them, how the director used this scene to expose another scene, and how he came back to that, and the different styles that different directors use. The more you begin to understand those, the more you begin to say, wait a minute, I can incorporate a little bit of that in my story. I think it will make my story better.
Yeah.
But the story itself comes from inside.
Okay.
And that has nothing to do with going to school.
All right. So from what you're saying to me, you need to be somebody who naturally is creative, naturally artistic. But ultimately, I guess, like you've said, in terms of technicalities, you would still need to gain some kind of ground. So let me put it to you this way: would you encourage, perhaps, would you like to see in Malawi more specialized, perhaps, film schools?
Yes.
Would that add to our film industry? Would that add value to the film industry in Malawi?
Yes, it would add a lot. A lot.
Because we don't have that, do we?
No, we don't. No, wait a minute. Chancellor College are now teaching filmmaking.
Right.
And the journalism course at the Pole has got a little bit of filmmaking in it. But Chancellor College have now got more or less a full-fledged course in filmmaking. And I think it's very, very helpful. Why I'm saying it's very, very helpful is that it provides you with the theoretical background of how films are made, and also understanding how different styles work, and then the technicalities, how the cameras work and so on. And that information is really very, very critical. You can say I can read it on my own. Yes, you can, but it will take you much longer. And because you are not being directed properly by a lecturer or a teacher, it takes you much longer and you might not even understand it. So I think that we need those schools. The other thing that I have to say is this, that within the filmmaking process, there is something like, for example, production management. There's something like set designing. There's something
there's
like
so many different modules,
and
aren't
those areas, you see, they need you to really understand what management, how to handle human beings. Okay, a production manager is somebody who really has to understand people. Okay, and I think like anybody who you go to school to learn human resources management. Actually, a person who understands human resources can easily become a good production manager. But it's more than that, because you are combining so many people and trying to work together with so many people and putting them all together and so on and so forth. So for areas like those, I really think that the school is going to help. And another thing is this, that like literature, like every other form of art, there are different forms of telling a story. There is the documentary part of telling a story, there is the fiction part of telling a story, and so on. When you go to a school, you begin to understand all these, and then you begin to say, wait a minute, I think I'm much better in doing it this way. So yeah, I think the schools will definitely help. And another thing I have to point out is this, that, for example, with our last film, we had to take somebody from South Africa, we had to hire a director of photography from South Africa. Because when I was doing my first films, I would have in my mind how I wanted that film to be.
Right.
But would be on set for something like 3, 4, 5 hours, and I would realize that I don't think I'm going to get what I want. So
And that was because the people around you didn't have the same vision.
Yeah, same vision, and they didn't understand, and maybe I was not able to articulate it enough for them to understand. But when this guy, for example, from South Africa came, he has been on so many film sets. So when I said I want it this way, he said, okay, fine, let's do it this way, let's do it this way. And suddenly, he came up with sometimes an even better way of putting a camera than I had thought, a better way of doing things than I had thought, which I feel that is necessary. So yeah, the education part is very, very important.
All right. And just to summarize, I suppose, what does it take to produce a quality film production? And you can be as, of course, extensive as you can be. But what does it take? Because I sometimes think, when we think of film, we have a very maybe for simplistic view of what it takes to produce quality. But then sometimes it's also not necessarily about money, is it? You could produce a very low budget but very profound movie that would impact lives.
Yes. The first thing about a film, a fictitious fiction film, is the story. You have to have a good story. First of all, that's it. I've watched films.
Does it have to be fictitious, though?
No, it doesn't have to be. In fact, with me, most of my stories, I pick a little bit of things that I've observed in life, and I think that I can claim without self-contradiction, saying that I'm quite good at observing people, and usually I would then incorporate what I've observed in my films, and sometimes some people recognize themselves in sometimes what they see. Hopefully I don't get sued because I don't mention their names.
Well, as long as I suppose the names are different.
But back to what you're saying.
What does it take?
What does it take? First of all, you have to have a good story. Okay? And then after having that good story, you have to understand how you are going to tell that story. Because if I tell a story and I expose the ending, for example, too soon, then the viewer will have nothing to keep him in suspense.
Right.
So you have to understand that in film, for 2 hours, you have to be strategic and saying that, look, let me give this a little bit and hint at something, and then hold back a little bit of information, give him more, hold back, give him more, and hold back.
So to create the element of intrigue.
Yeah, because
so people want to know more.
A film takes you through an emotional journey. The viewer has to be absorbed in that story. And the emotional journey he travels through is the journey that the main actor is going to go through. And the main actor in the film doesn't know what's going to happen. Though there's a script which tells him what's happening, he doesn't know what's going to happen in future. So that kind of suspense that you create, that's there in real life, you have to replicate it on a film screen. You have then to tell in certain beats. And another thing is this, that you don't want your film to have so much tension throughout. You want to give tension and release it. Give tension.
So peaks and troughs.
Yes, peaks and troughs. That's it. It looks like you've made a movie. The way you're talking, it's like you've. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You need to give tension and then release it, and so on and so forth, until you reach your climax.
Right.
And again, the general theory of storytelling, like the 3-act storytelling system, where you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, is very, very critical. You could have a good story, and then you begin to say, wait a minute, where do I start? Okay, there are stories that start at the end, and then the rest of the story becomes a flashback. There are
Right.
stories like that.
Yeah.
But there are certain stories that start and you don't even know where they're going. And the viewer can't even leave and go to the toilet because you just want to know what happens next.
Okay.
So that ability now to tell that story in that way is very critical. You have to understand that, again, another very, very important thing. And this is the message I would want to pass to any Malawian filmmaker out there, that if you're trying to make a story, you want to imagine your film in images and then tell somebody using those images. Imagine images and then use those images to tell your story. Don't be too verbal. Okay, you use words,
So,
but
so
it's still,
it should be visual, isn't
yes,
it?
visual.
Visual illustration.
Yeah, yes. You should have a visual. It's like a comic book.
Right.
Okay, you seeing what's happening. The words are simply putting things together. What I've noted in most of African stories, and why maybe they haven't made it that much, is because they're too verbose. You want to explain everything. You want to tell someone everything. You don't have to. It's like, again, commentator on a football match. Somebody commenting, for example, on radio, and another one commenting on television.
Yeah.
You have a different commentator.
Yeah.
Because the other guy is watching the football. So you don't have to
So
go.
the other one is obviously going to need to be more descriptive.
Yes.
Because people can't see.
Yeah, can see, yes.
Right.
But what I've noted is this, that most of our filmmakers, the biggest fault I've seen is that we take the normal storytelling system, which we use when we are telling, when my grandmother was a very good storyteller. Every evening she would tell me a story and so on and so forth. I would want them to tell my movie that way. No, we have to show people what's happening. If I'm going, for example, in my story, to show that somebody went into town and was robbed, instead of me telling you that and say, wait a minute, he went to town and got robbed, I should show him being robbed in town.
Right.
That's much better than me simply another character just coming in and explaining that.
Do you think it's perhaps a lack of creativity, that perhaps we just don't know how to articulate that visually, and as a result, we perhaps hide behind, like you said, the verboseness?
Yeah, maybe it's got to do now. This is where the school part comes in.
Yeah.
This is where the training part comes in. Because if you have gone to school and you have been trained, you understand that very well right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is what I learned in most of the books I read on script writing. That always trying to show people what's happening than telling them what's happening. Okay, you can break that rule. And somebody who has never read any book on filmmaking or who has never gone to class on filmmaking will not think about it that way. He will try to tell the story the way you always tell stories when you're playing bao and so on. You tell your friends what happens in town, what happened in Limbi, and so on. And that, I think, is a bore. And it bores people to death. And every time people are watching, they try to think ahead of the film. They leave, they can come back, and they can actually tell you what has happened. And that is really a disaster on the film. Because a film should never allow a viewer to walk away.
Okay.
A viewer should be so in it that, yeah.
All right. So we have a sort of a very brief idea what it takes to produce a film. But I wonder, what other influences do you have in your life that actually help you decide this is what you want to make a movie on? And I say this because I understand that you're supposed to be working on the life of John Chilembwe. But where are we with that? Because you haven't actually done that yet. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of Malawians, a story a lot of Malawians would want to see being told. What's holding you back? Why are you not following through with this biography of John Chilembwe?
Yeah, finances. The biography of John Chilembwe is going to be a very difficult film to make because, one, there is the issue about money.
Okay, why though? Why is this
because
particularly
it's a big
different?
one.
Why
Yeah,
is the story different
yeah,
to any
because
other?
it's so different because, one, it's a historical story. We will need to recreate everything that happened during that time. John Chilembwe built a church which was eventually brought down by dynamite. People were dressed in a specific way. They had specific guns they were using. They had all these other things that if we're going to be true to this story and tell it as good as possible, and this is another thing about film, it has to be as realistic as possible. So that when we put the film on screen, people should believe that they actually forget that they are watching an actor. They should think that they are watching John Chilembwe. So we have to really bring all that in. So historical pieces are so difficult to do because you really have to replicate the history and the dress and things like that. And that's one major thing about the John Chirembe thing film. I think I would not do it justice if I go there with a small budget and simply say that I'm going to do it like a radio play and then no, I would not. I will need quite a bit of money on that. My previous budget when I was working on it, by the way, the script is already ready. I've written the script.
I know that. That's why I'm saying why is it not coming out?
It's not coming out because I need $3 million to make it. And I know Malawians will say, wait a minute, that's an incredible amount of money for a film.
And this is because you're saying it's a period drama, which means you need to make sure the wardrobe is on point. Everything is on point. So what would it take for you to get that kind of funding?
Yeah, I'll take somebody out there who's a millionaire who has
because
got a check and
because to me it strikes me that in the end we're going to miss out on really pertinent stories, very profound stories, because we simply just don't have the budget. Are we doing the film industry justice if that's the case?
Yeah, no. Let's put it this way. On the Chirembe story, I think that story is going to be made.
Right.
I'm going to make the John Chirembe film. And one of the reasons why I've been making films and trying to make quality films is to see if I can use that as a way of marketing myself to people who have the finances, so that they can say, wait a minute, if we give this guy $3 million, can you really do a film? Because if I've done a film with something like, let's say 20 million kwacha, and it's such a good film, then at least the people who have got the finances can begin to get convinced that I think this guy can make this film for us. Okay. Can make this film. So I think that we're going to make the John Chirembe film. I'm in touch with several people in the United States, several people in South Africa, and several people in UK. In fact, one of the key people who has written a lot about Malawi, John Stuart Mogg, and Shepperson, who wrote the thick book, the millennial book on John Chirembe, they already know about this. They've read my script and they've made their comments on it, and they, in fact, very encouraging comments they made. So it's a matter of getting the funding, and I'm sure sooner or later we're going to get it. All
right, we're going to take a short break, Shemu, before we come back. But if you're just tuning in, you're watching Times Exclusive right here on Times TV with me, Wezi Kasambala. And today I'm joined by filmmaker extraordinaire Shemu Joya, and we were initially talking about how he got into the film industry, etc., etc. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the kind of films that he's making, what is influencing his choice in movie stories, etc., etc. But also some of the other controversy that's associated with some of the storylines that he's picked. That's after the break on Times Exclusive, brought to you, of course, by Rainbow Paints.
Weather Shield, another brand from Rainbow Paints. This is Ultimate, an extreme high-performance acrylic smooth textured finishing with ultraviolet absorption and maximum flexibility properties for wall finishes. A built-in fungicide to resist molds. Simple to use, quick drying, water-resistant binding power, low dirt retention, and hides hairline cracks. Suitable for use on all exterior walls, be it plaster, concrete, or brickwork. Available in a wide range of colors in 5 and 20-liter containers. Contact us today in Blantyre 01841 813 01841 871, Lilongwe 01755 901. Email info@rainbowpaints.biz. Rainbow Paints, peace of mind, part of the deal.
Ndabwera nato.
Kana kuya.
Masunga mpete.
Self-defense. What is your name?
Rubia.
Rubia who? What is your surname?
I don't have a surname.
I'll be calling for the death sentence. I think the lady doesn't deserve anything less.
Not guilty.
You woke up early.
I wanted to watch the sunrise.
Hello there and welcome to this week's edition of Times Exclusive on Times TV. I'm your host Wezi Kasambala. Today I'm talking to filmmaker Shemu Joya, who recently premiered his latest movie, The Road to Sunrise in Lilongwe. We're going to be talking about that in a minute. But before I get to that, I want us to focus on the influences and the storylines that Shemu has been picking for his movies. Now, obviously you earned accolades, Shemu, for the movies Seasons of a Life and The Last Fishing Boat. You got even a Best Soundtrack Award at the African Movie Festival, and that was in 2013. So obviously you've been highly recognized for the work that you do. But you've also come under a little bit of criticism and controversy regarding your choice of storylines. I'll start with, I think it was in Seasons of a Life, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a story on homosexuality, is that right?
No, that's The Last Fishing
The Last
Boat.
Fishing Boat, I beg your
Yes.
pardon.
Yes.
People have actually criticized you and said the only reason you picked that storyline was because you were getting funding from some kind of gay rights bodies. How true is this?
No, it's not true at all. Actually, what happened is this, that I wrote the script and spent 2 years looking for funding. And almost every institution I applied to, they never responded positively. And when I sent the script to the Norwegian embassy, at that particular moment, even somebody at the Norwegian embassy told me that, no, we have never funded a film before, so I don't think you have a chance, but still, just send it so we can see. And I sent the script. 2 days later, he phoned me urgently to say the ambassador's read your script and was so impressed with it. He has already sent an email to Norway, to Oslo, to our head office, to say that we want extra money to fund your film. So in other words, I wrote the issue about homosexuality even before I got the
So
funding.
it had nothing to do with the fact that
No.
you were desperate for funding.
No.
And you needed funding, so you
No,
needed
no.
to create a line that would fit in with your funding?
No. I wrote that story because of my general observation of people. If you look at The Last Fishing Boat, it's talking about the life of people, say, over a 2-week period.
Yeah.
And within there, I bring in so many issues that come up, including prostitution. All I did was throw in a male prostitute. Okay, I could have made her a woman prostitute. But I just felt that, look, let me throw in a male prostitute. Now,
What was
most
the significance of that for
the
you at that
significance-
time?
Yeah, the significance of that was that we were going towards a situation, a period, when I was writing the script,
Yes.
that issues on homosexuality were coming out in Malawi.
Yes.
In fact, I wrote the script before the two people got married. Remember that
Yes.
famous marriage?
Yes.
I wrote that part about 6 months earlier.
Okay.
And then after their marriage was made public and they were arrested, I actually thought that I should delete that part from my film. But I said that, look, these things are happening. Okay? As I say, I'm an observer of society. I observe people. I look at people and I watch them and I see what they are doing. And I know that whether we like it or not, there are homosexuals in Malawi.
Yeah.
We can't run away from that.
Yeah.
And I just felt that it's something that I need to talk about. I don't shy away from controversy. As far as I'm concerned, if I observe something in society and I feel that I need to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. And I think it's healthy that we should
So
talk
after
about
you
these
then
things.
you did include that in your script, did that perhaps create interest from perhaps other bodies who thought, oh, hang on a minute, here's somebody who's talking about the homosexuality issue. Maybe we should give him funding. Did that garner any kind of interest for you?
No,
After
actually,
that?
the latter, no. We only got funding from the two fundings. We got funding from the Norwegian Embassy, and we got the other funding from Sweden, for the Gothenburg International Film Festival. The Gothenburg International Film Festival, they gave me funding because they'd been impressed with my first film. And when I was in Zanzibar, a lady from there who saw my film, and I explained the problems I went through making that film. He said, look, I've been so impressed with your film. Back home, we have a film festival that has got a fund. I'm going to speak to the festival director to see whether they can assist you.
Yeah.
So they were going to assist me regardless of what film I was going to make. Okay? And in fact, come to think of it, Last Fishing Boat is a film that I think most Westerners have not really liked so much. Because that's one film where the Westerners are not coming in as heroes. In fact, they are the villains. The heroes are the local Malawians. And I know quite a number of people who have said that, and even one of my actors, my white actors, has told me that some of his friends have asked him why did he act in the film.
Okay.
So it's got actually, to me, I just wrote. I didn't care whether they were gonna pick it or they're gonna.
Okay, so in other words, what I'm trying to say is, are you as authentic as you can be? And I want you to put to bed perhaps the assertions that you only write stories depending on what's trending and where perhaps you might get assistance in terms of funding. Your stories are authentically your stories which you believe in, issues that you are passionate about,
Yes.
not because you're getting funding
No.
for a specific issue that happens to be trending.
No. And in fact, come to think of it, let me just say this. When later on, Last Fishing Boat was taken by the Norwegian Embassy and they were funding it, I had a chat with one of the senior officials at the Norwegian Embassy, and I said, look, why were you interested? He said, know what? Your film talks about conservation. There's somewhere I'm talking about conserving the lake.
Yeah.
They actually had put in some money in conservation of the lake. And that subject, in fact, after we had shot, they were telling me this to say that we hope you have really enhanced that part, because that's one of the parts that really interested us when we saw your script. So in other words, it's not even, okay, it might have been the homosexual part, but they never
Yeah.
actually told me that they were funding it because of that. Nor did I put it in there because I felt I was going to get funding. No,
All
no,
right.
I don't, yeah.
Okay, well, at least you finally put that to bed. Let's move on now to your most recent production, The Road to Sunrise. I think it was showcased in abroad not so long ago. I think it
Yeah.
was a couple of months back, am I
Yeah,
right?
yes,
And then
in September.
Yes, in September. Then it premiered in Lilongwe just last week Friday.
Yes.
Let's talk about the storyline. For one thing, you've used actresses and actors whom I don't think you've used before.
No.
Miriam Piri and Chantal Piri.
Yes.
Amongst others. And why did you decide to do that this time around?
I decided that because I feel that, one, we have got a lot of talented people in Malawi.
Yeah.
And when I've worked, right from the beginning, the people I worked with, even the time I first picked Flora to do In the Seasons of Her Life, I didn't know her at all. There were so many other actors whom I knew then. But when we did the auditions, it turned out that actually she was much better. And today she's a film star. And I think I have to admit she's one of the greatest actors I've ever worked with.
So you
Now,
believe in harnessing raw talent?
Yes, yes. So
Right.
when I was now doing this film, I thought that, look, let me audition people and then let's see. Because I feel that if our industry is going to grow, which I'm very passionate about, I really need this industry to grow. It's definitely something that I have a passion for. We can't just be me making films, Flora acting in them, or one or two other people acting in them.
Yeah.
Flora now is making her own films, which I always encourage her with. She gives me her scripts to read, and so on and so forth. And she even advised me to one of the main actresses. She even told me that, oh, there's this girl in Longway, you should try her. Because we want to expand this industry.
Yeah.
And if this industry is going to grow, it's not going to grow because of just one or two individuals.
No.
It's going to grow if everybody
So you need to
else-
have a diversity of
Yes.
talent.
So, and I can assure you this. I've watched a lot of Malawians during the auditions. And some of the people I don't even pick because they're only 2-3 main roles in the film.
Yeah.
Who are really, really talented. particularly as actors, we have a lot of talent out there.
Okay.
And I think that it's my duty as a filmmaker to see how I can exploit that and how I can take advantage of that and also expose them. Because
right.
what they're lacking is exposure. That's
Okay.
It. Yeah.
Now let's look at the storyline of The Rise, or rather The Road to Sunrise. It seems to focus primarily on two women,
Yes.
and the issue is prostitution. These are two
Yes.
prostitutes who are having to grapple with day-to-day challenges dealing with their pimp. This is the person who is basically selling them out there, as well as how their customers, or should we say their clients, treat them as well.
Yeah.
How far do you think this will go towards one, empowering women, but also really highlighting the struggles of women and perhaps the misogyny that exists in our Malawian context in terms of how we relate to women? Because as much as prostitution, and many might consider a very perhaps not a very nice topic to talk about, it is real. It's very real, and it's existed since the days of the Bible.
Yeah.
But we like to think of it as something that's condemned.
Yeah.
But you've brought it to the fore because you want to highlight the struggles of women.
Yes, that's it. And as I say earlier on, I really don't shy away from a topic simply because I feel that I might be excommunicated from the church or whatever.
But then, like I said, even in the days of the Bible,
Yes.
there was prostitution.
Yeah. Yes. You see, I've seen a lot of issues happening where I think that to a large extent, women are on the receiving end, even on things that maybe, actually they too are victims. They are victims, and once they come out to the fore, they become even victims.
Yeah.
Like the lady in the Bible who was
Yes.
going to be stoned just before Jesus Christ intervened.
Yes.
We don't know. I mean, we don't even know what the man, where the man went to. Up
Yeah.
to now, 200 years,
No one has
2,000 years,
spoken of the
has
man.
ever even tried to trace where he went to. But we know that they wanted to stone the woman to death.
Yes.
Actually, maybe the guy was raping her.
Yeah.
We don't know. But we have put in so much pressure on women. So I felt that there's a very, it's very, very unfortunate and very unfair how women are treated.
Yeah.
And a lot of girls who find themselves in prostitution actually sometimes don't do it because they simply like it. It's because either they are made pregnant at school, they're chased away from school, and sometimes their parents reject them completely, and they say, look, you're mwana wanga because you became pregnant, you have embarrassed me, and so on and so forth. Suddenly you find that these are the girls who then become prostitutes. Some of them are because they are orphans, and like in the film, one of the girls is an orphan. She has 3 siblings to take care of, and the other girl, she's made pregnant by a teacher, and she has to survive. So people actually, it's a hard choice to make, to become a prostitute and stand outside Mount Sochi in 10 degrees
So what you're
centigrade.
saying is, in a lot of cases, it's a means to an end.
It's a means to an end. And I think that we have not approached it with maybe the sympathy that it requires. And also, we are too judgmental in terms of judging the women. And then we have not really fully condemned the people who make the prostitute exist.
Absolutely.
And that's demand.
There is also another school of thought which suggests that, look, at the end of the day, you cannot have a supply unless there's a demand.
Yes,
which is why in other parts of the world, actually, prostitution itself is in fact legal.
Yes.
But then it's the soliciting of those services
Yes.
that then gets you into trouble. So if you're found trying to solicit
Yes.
sexual favors, then you're the one who gets into trouble.
Yes,
So
yeah.
in some ways, that's perhaps a
In
better
fact,
way of looking at it, isn't it?
To me, even tomorrow, if they were going to say our MPs are going to discuss whether prostitution should be legal or not, I would say yes. Okay, because seriously speaking, you see, to me, I see the prostitutes as victims. Okay, and I think society has to do something about it.
Okay.
And another thing that I need also to talk about, actually, in terms of the prostitutes themselves, is in the story how then they are trying to empower themselves, because it's not just talking about the prostitutes themselves and from beginning to end they're just prostituting themselves. No, is they realize that they're in a weak position, and because they're in a weak position, they now gradually begin to see how they can empower themselves. To me, that's a much even stronger message that is in the film. The
so it's a journey of discovery.
The journey of discovery, the journey of empowerment.
Okay.
And in it, I want the women themselves to realize, in the story, the women themselves realize their problem, and then they say, what should we do to
How
empower
can you
us?
break free? How can you
That's
emancipate
it.
yourself?
To me, that's the more important message I have
Okay.
in the film. Yeah.
Shemu, we're running out of time, but very quickly, last 2 points. How difficult was it to be able to balance bringing this issue out there, bringing this issue to the fore, so that we all discuss it soberly, because it's a real issue in Malawi. Prostitution is real, but also not avoiding necessarily glamorizing it as well, because I'm sure some of your critics would be saying, but why are you glamorizing prostitution? How difficult was that for you? Very quickly.
Yeah, it was
in
very
60
difficult,
seconds.
and it was very difficult because it's prostitution. Any film with prostitution has to have different issues here.
Yeah.
There's issues of language, there's issues of actually sex.
Yes.
That's why it's rated under, not for people under 18.
Yes.
You can't talk of the life of a prostitute without talking about all those other issues. So I'd really to find ways of how I can do it in such a way that people don't look at it as glamorizing, but actually talking about certain things that we normally don't want to talk about. And I feel that to some extent, getting the reaction which I got from Lilongwe when people saw it, they really enjoyed it. And in fact, the German ambassador came to me and said it's one of the most powerful films he has ever watched.
All right.
And even immediately said, look, I would want to see if this film can go to Germany because it's such a powerful story, the way you have told it and so on. So to me, I think we managed to achieve something by telling it that way.
All right, and finally, very, very quickly, are we making strides in the Malawi movie industry? Is our storytelling and the likes of the movies that you've released, Seasons of a Life, The Last Fishing Boat, now The Road to Sunrise, is it making an impact? Is Malawi's movie industry ticking? Could we one day have our own, Mollywood? Very, very quickly.
Yes, we're making strides. Personally, I think we are not making as fast as we can, but we are making strides. And maybe we don't have to speed it too much. But I think I can see a lot of improvement. I've seen even the way people are shooting weddings now.
Yes, it's
They're
much
shooting
better,
things
more
much better.
creative.
Yeah, it's more creative. So I think we're making strides, and that's it. And we're forming an industry slowly. It's like a little kid who's born. I can see we're crawling now. We
Yeah.
are not walking yet,
All
but
right.
we're getting there.
All right, we're
Yeah,
toddling
sure.
now.
We are toddling. Yeah,
We're toddling. And piracy, are we addressing piracy?
That's a big issue. That's why I'm not going to release the film on DVD until much later. We want people to come. That's why this evening people are going to watch it at Robbins Park.
Okay.
In longer they watched it at Bingo ICC. And after that, we're going to be taking it to cinemas. There's the M Theater at Game, and we want to arrange in Lilongwe where people should come and pay to watch the film instead of releasing the DVD. Because the moment you release the DVD, it's almost like donating it to the pirater, because he
Absolutely.
takes it and all of a sudden it's everywhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Shemu Joya, I'm afraid this is where we're going to have to leave it. Unfortunately, time is against us, but it was such a pleasure talking to you. We wish you all the best with your new movie, The Road to Sunrise. I think it's got critical acclaim. Hopefully, we'll also see it again at the Africa Movie Academy Festival.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll get some more awards. But I'm afraid for now, we're going to have to leave it there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Shemu Joya for coming into the Times TV studios. But I'm afraid that's where we're going to have to leave this week's edition of Times Exclusive. From me, Wezi Kasambala. Until next week, it's bye-bye.